I'm here at the Learning Enrichment Foundation, where local community organizers and activists have been discussing local issues such as housing affordability and transit. And it's been something that's been affecting the community with the LRT still in waiting. And it's been an interesting day talking to facilitators.
I grew up here and I'm also involved in building housing in Mount Dennis.
Okay. And
And why I'm here because this is the Mount Dennis People's Summit and where everyone's getting together to plan the future for Mount Dennis, and it's a lot of energy.
So there are a lot of important issues here that I'm seeing people are congregating in breakout sessions. What would you say some of those issues are for folks?
Well, for me, there's, I guess, two issues that stand out. One is the issue of affordable housing, both protecting it and also building more affordable housing in the community. And the second is just public space, because as the community will grow, it's important that people have places to meet and to congregate and be together. And also, I guess, thirdly, protecting the businesses that are here, that have been here for a long time and deserve to stay and serve the existing residents.
And what are some proposed solutions to help fix the housing affordability crisis?
Well, I think the top of the list would be further government investment in infrastructure and affordable housing. And the second thing I would say is the community really realizing that it has a voice and it can actually help self-determine the future.
And besides housing affordability, or I guess related to that, what would you say is the most reoccurring issue in regards to housing?
Oh, I think there's two issues really regarding housing. One is the affordability of it, or the lack of affordability, and the second is there's not enough.
So, do you think something like, say, rent control would be a proposed solution for the city of Toronto? And how could we maybe petition that to the city's government?
Well, I think first of all, the bigger issue is the demolition of existing housing, both rental and ownership housing in Mount Dennis. As new development comes in, that contributes towards gentrification of the community. So preserving what's here is extremely, extremely important. And those are often city and provincial policies that do that, as well opportunities to buy from private owners housing through land trusts and through other types of nonprofit and cooperative housing initiatives. Those are really the ones. In terms of rent control, absolutely the need for controls on rents so that people aren't forced out or economically evicted from their homes.
And you said it's to help, or one of the solutions would be to protect existing buildings. Is that because there are laws protecting, older buildings, and once these new buildings are in development, they're not subject to the same stringent, I guess, housing regulations?
No, I think it's more that we have existing affordable housing that rental housing in particular in Mount Dennis, and it's about how you continue to maintain, upgrade that, but also protect it from it being sold or demolished, and through co-op and nonprofit housing programs that the federal, city, and provincial government could support. People should be able to feel that this is their home and they're not going to be moved.
With new housing development, it feels like a lot of times like developers are just building or buying a property and not building on it. What are some solutions that potentially the city or government agencies can do to fix that situation?
Well, one of the things that there's a lot of development that's been approved in this community, but because of the economic uncertainty, including the tariffs from the United States, that will affect the cost of construction. They're sitting, houses are sitting empty, lots are sitting empty, and so it's about how do you spur and start putting shovels in the ground. and create the marketplace where it's economical for the developers to build. The opening of the LRT will help because that will provide access to employment for people that would move into the community, and also the government assistance through the waiving of development charges, through low-cost financing, and also with a focus around nonprofit and cooperative housing would help.
Great, thank you so much.
Brenna Stansler, Associate Professor of Sociology and Director of the Housing Justice Lab at the University of Toronto.
And tell me a bit about what you're doing today here at today's event at the Mount Dennis People Summit.
Yeah, so the Housing Justice Lab is supporting untitled planning in this event and the residents of Mount Dennis to facilitate conversations about what Mount Dennis is going to look like in the future. And so my job here is to just help residents kind of get their voices out and also tabulate all that into reports so we can give it back to the city to actually express residents' concerns.
So, what could you tell me about any trends you've seen recently? Has COVID, for example, changed housing in certain ways?
Yeah, so I think at different times housing has gotten cheaper, but we even see now rents are slowly going down a little bit, but we just know it's just still a housing crisis, right? And so there's still a lot of people moving into this kind of region. There's a lot of affordability needs, but even in the conversations we were having this morning, there's issues around safety, there's issues around can people actually stay here, there's issues around what the future of this neighborhood is actually going to look like. And so those are concerns I'm seeing across the board for a lot of long-standing residents, but also newcomers are finding it hard on where they can actually live, and so where do they fit in. And so as we're growing, I think there's a lot of kind of conflict about what that is going to look like by newcomers and residents alike.
What about the recent transit plans, right? Everybody's up in arms about the LRT. Not too long ago, they opened up the Union Pearson Express. So with that, with more transit, usually comes more people, potentially housing. But has that also cost people housing as well?
Yeah, I mean, we had this conversation earlier, and so the LRT, people are really excited for it to come online whenever that is, right? And so a lot of them talk about how their kids went to different schools, and still the LRT is not there. And so it is a concern, but I did ask one of the residents about if you had affordable housing near your transit station, would you actually live there? And there were still concerns about safety. They were like, well, you know, transit stops usually breed or bring a lot of different types of people that may have like bad intentions or that have mental health issues and people that are living on the street. And so this was also a concern amongst residents themselves. Like, even if you build housing there, what are we doing to give people other types of supports in that space? Because they feel like a lot of people are just falling through the cracks.
And maybe you could elaborate a little bit more when you say people are falling through the cracks of what you need.
Yeah, so one of the residents today, she's been waiting for affordable housing for 10 years. She's been on the list, right? It was supposed to be a temporary thing. She was only going to be there up to a year, but she's been living there in a one-bedroom studio with her 23-year-old daughter for the last 10 years, right? And so that's not a good situation for anybody to be in, especially for a family with a child that has special needs. And so a lot of the resources that people see or they're not actually getting, some residents are now knowledgeable about some of the services that the city actually offers. So there's a big disconnect about availability of resources, but actually getting to the residents that might need it the most.
What about these new developments? I feel like a lot of times, potentially, developers might buy a property, but they don't necessarily build on it. So what can we do as a solution to get these folks to expedite their housing?
Yeah, I mean, partly if developers or landowners are just sitting on property, it should be some type of tax, right? So if you're not actively developing that land for future housing, then that's a big strain on the city, right? We don't have that much space to actually deal with at this point. I think there's other things in terms about what are the types of funding mechanisms the city is doing, the province is doing, and the feds are doing to actually build more housing. And so are there local supports that the city can do? And we understand that the city's budget is tight, but are there better programs or resources out there so they can build more housing faster? I mean, the last thing I would say is that we need to just invest more into an affordable housing stock. And so the role of nonprofits and maybe an affordable housing developer will become central to that, because a lot of our market is not affordable as it is now. So,
any last thing you would like to add?
No, I hopefully that we take these residents' concerns seriously and not just like another performance, right? So we do a lot of reports, we do a lot of public consultations, but it still is relying on developers to do it. And so if we're doing all this and having community meetings coming up, hopefully their voices will be heard and not just, understood or checked off as another planning process. So. hopefully that's something.
I'm Brian Capitao reporting for Arctic Wolf News.